Hello and welcome to another online video lecture for CIT 230 Advanced Java. Today we're going to continue working with the catch game that we created in previous lessons. And if you don't remember, when I run this game, we have a simple interface with a box we can move using the left and right arrow keys, and the ball drops randomly from a location across the top of the screen. If we line the box up within a reasonable margin of error, we are declared a winner. If I hit the R key on the keyboard, it resets the game and lets me try again. If I miss beyond the margin of error, I'm declared a loser. Today, the expansions we're going to do involve adding images, specifically animated GIFs, and sound to add a little multimedia flair to the application and get you familiar with adding those kinds of elements into the application. So we'll start with the images. You'll notice that typically in a lot of what we've been doing with the JavaFX API library set, that pretty much anything that we add to the application for the action of the application, buttons and other interface elements, shapes, colors, and now images, they all are sub-libraries of the scene. That's done very intentionally for the sake of keeping those sort of elements, those visual type elements, and in this case also sound, together in one place because they all make up the scene or the interface with the user. Now you'll notice I've added this line of code here, the JavaFX Scene Image API. I did use the wildcard because there are two classes that we need. And as I've stated before, for me, my convention personally is if I use more than one class, I import using the wildcard. And if I'm only using one class, then I do call out or specify the class. So what we see here is we are going to be using the image and image view classes here. Now before I add the actual image, when we're working with animated GIFs, they're slightly different than static images. So for instance, this image here is the one that we're going to use in the game to indicate winning. But based on the way the game looks at this time, that image is much too large. For static images of, say, the JPEG or PNG style, we could use something even as simple as Windows Paint to do a resize of that image, and everything works. But since a GIF is technically a collection of images packaged in a specific way, we need very specific tools to be able to do that with. And as luck may have it, there are a number of tools such as this easygif.com that allow us to resize images. So, if I were in the case of this application, if I went to my folder where that image lived, there we go, and I wanted to take the big one, I can just select that. Oops. And then upload it. Oh, shoot. I made a mistake. Somehow when I clicked the wrong one, there we go. So once it uploads it, it shows you the image, and you'll see that it is 360 by 360. I might want something different, like, say, 50 by 50. One of the things I do um, recommend is always to resize with the same ratio. So in this case, it's a square. Keep it a square, otherwise the image can get obscured. And then when you click to resize it, you'll see it's given us a new one that's much littler, and you can save it and do a few other things to it. Um, again, I've already done that, but I just wanted to walk you through that because it's useful information to have um, in your tool belt when working with these kinds of things. So if we go down to our inner class, the ball pane, if you remember, we created our own private class or inner class for the game itself, where all the action takes place, uh, the specific pane. Um, One of the things that we've done in here is we've created all of our interface elements: the ball, the three lines that make up the box, the text that displays whether you win or don't win. So now we want to add in an image. And again, we got that from the image package, the image API library, which is a sub-library of the scene. And we will make a new image, and we can directly specify the file that we are using. Alrighty. And I have separate images here for when we win and when we lose. And the losing one is called crying. Whoops, .gif. Now, I'm going to show this one way first, and then we'll refine it. But the image view, which I indicated we would need, is sort of, we'll call it the frame for the image. And the image view, there's a number of things you can do with it, like specify where on the interface you want it to go. You can do certain kinds of optimizations depending on the size of the image and how you want it to load. Um, and but just think of it as the frame that holds the image that we want to display. So, because it holds the image, you might suspect that we'll do private image view equals new image view, and we can put, oops, must be late, I left out naming any of these. We'll call this win. We'll call this one lose. And we'll call this win-lose icon. And we can just pass it the image. For now, I'm going to just throw in the first one. And then we need to add that to our children container. Just like we do every other visual element, remember we pull the children container and we can add elements, and every time we do an add or add all, it just simply puts it in an additional thing into the box. So we will put in here win-lose icon, no different than adding the text, the box, or the ball, which are all things we've done before. Let's save it and let's take a look at how this works. Oops. I didn't compile during this time. Java catch.java. Alright, it's successfully compiled, and you'll notice it, as anticipated, it displays the image. But unfortunately, the image is always there. So that adds a little bit of a challenge to us, right? And it also keeps us from having different images from when we win or lose. So I'm going to change it up a little bit here. What I'm going to do is I am going to start by using the no argument image view constructor. And if you were wondering about that, we can go back to our API documentation, which we're all hopefully getting familiar with this semester. And we'll open up both the SC8 and the FX2.0. And over here in scene.image, image view, we can go down and see what constructors there are. And there is a no argument constructor in addition to one where we can specify an image or specify a universal resource locator URL. We're going to talk more about URLs in a few minutes. But for now, we're going to go ahead and use the no argument constructor, because what that does is that is going to load it with no image. And that's good so that when we win or lose, we can specify the image at that time. We can do win, lose, icon.setImage. And one of the things is I hope you're noticing as we work through problems like this is sort of the elementary stuff we learned in a CIT 130 course all really do pertain to the real world stuff. As we know, there's an image associated with the image view. As I said, it's like a frame for an image. And we can specify that image in the constructor. And if we don't, it should be automatic to think that there would be a set image. Again, if you want to verify, you can go down, look at the method summary for what you've got, and lo and behold, set image is indeed a method. And this is where we can set win. And likewise, lose. Let's save that and see how that works. We compile and we run. So we've at least solved our first problem. The image only appears after we begin the game, but at reset time, it doesn't go away. And you'll notice additionally, how my image is obscuring the text. So those are things that we'll want to solve for the sake of, making a better application. So one of the things that might occur to you is to try to set the x and y coordinates of the image up here like we did with the line, the ball, the text. But if you look at our image view, um, when we look at the constructors, none of the constructors allow us to set the x or y there. And we would wind up with a compiler error because when we make a class is made up of fields or attributes or properties and methods. So we can't put just open code out at the class level. It has to go inside one of the methods. And so we'll do that just like we set the fill and stroke colors of the ball inside the constructor. Let's go ahead and do the x and y coordinates of the image here. So now we can do win, lose, icon dot set x, which x is a property. We'll keep it at that 10 just like the text is. But so it doesn't obscure the text, we're going to drop on the y-axis, we're going to drop it down a little bit, and we'll go with 30. That way, the image doesn't obscure the text. We can see both. And then the other thing is we have to get rid of the image when we hit the reset. So if you remember when we wrote the reset method, and I just passed it up on accident, we kind of put everything back to the beginning. We re-randomize where the ball drops from. We set the ball Y to the top. We move the box back to the center of the screen. We blank out our text and we restart the animation. But now we need to do something win, lose, icon. And if we want to reset that, what we have to do is we have to return to no image. Well, how we do that with objects, and clearly, we called a constructor to make it, so we know the image is indeed an object. If we want to have no object, we use a special value, and null is a value, not technically a keyword, just like true and false with booleans are values. Null is a value and represents what we would call the empty object. The reference variable points at nothing. That by nullifying the image, we are blanking it out. So let's go ahead and save that. And let's recompile. Fantastic. And now we'll see the image no longer obscures the text. It disappears when we reset. And we've added a little pizzazz, if you will, to the game. Alrighty. So hopefully that's pretty straightforward. Again, things like the set x, the set y, the set image, these things follow those standardizations that we all have learned up to this point. Java tries to use a very specific framework in order to make developing as simple and straightforward as possible, so you don't have to spend a lot of time looking up information. You can use classes and objects the same way consistently throughout the language. So now let's look at adding sound. So there are a couple of different things you can do. You can have like a sort of a media player where you have more control over a sound, or if you just want to play a clip like we do here to add a little excitement to the game, um, we can use what's called the audio clip. And that comes from javafx.media. That's where we get the ability to add video and sound to our applications. And you'll be surprised again at how simple that is. We only need the one thing, the audio clip, because we're not putting it into a media player that gives us like rewind or fast forward or track skipping and things like that. We're just working with a clip that we're just going to play. So let's go back down and add a new element. We'll do private audio clip. Win clip equals new audio clip. Now, by instinct, we are going to want to do it like this. But what we're going to find, let's save it, is this is going to give us an unusual error. So I want to first show it, and it's, oh, what did I do? Oh, I made a mistake. Because I was talking, I left off the scene. As I said, all these sort of interface elements, whether they're audio or visual, those live inside the scene. The sublibraries fall under the scene. So we're going to get an unusual error here. I'm going to go ahead and try to run this, and we see the whole thing just pukes on us. And we see a lot of things that make references to unknown source. The problem here comes from the URL. So with the growth of cloud-based solutions, online solutions, and things like that, the newer JavaFX interface platform gives us tends to work more with very more universal resources. So we see that this is a string source. So it will be a string, but the string is intended to be a source URL. Now, up to this point, your interaction with the World Wide Web, URLs have probably typically been web addresses for you. And you even see in the example they give up here, they're pointing to a resource that is indeed going to be handled with standard web protocols. But we can refer to local files as well. And there's you can look into to ways this work. I'm going to skip the gory details, and I'm just going to show a couple things. Typically, when we're working with local files as a URL, instead of indicating HTTP, we would indicate file / and we would put a slash to indicate current directory and the name of the file. But URLs can be fairly persnickety, and we'll see that in this case it's not going to make it any better. So one of the things we have at our disposal to help alleviate the frustration here is we can construct a URL based on a resource held in the same class space as this application. So what we can do is we can do a private URL URL equals new URL. And we, not new URL. What we're going to do is we're going to refer to the pane itself, the class that we're working with. This class is in the class space. We're going to get the class, which allows us to have access to the space in which this class and the other classes involved in this application lives. And now we can just get a resource like we did the GIFs above and just type in clap.wave. And now that'll give us a URL that we can then convert to a string, and we know that it will match the right format for the URL. We don't have to keep experimenting until we figure out exactly what it wants, because we've created, and I forgot to do my include. My import. Now I sound like a C++ programmer all of a sudden. My import java.net.url. Let's save that. And let's compile it and run it. I don't know why I ran it, because I haven't actually wired the sound to do anything, but we see now that, at least by running it this time, we see that it doesn't throw up on us anymore. So let's add the second sound, the second audio clip, because we want one for when if we win and one if we lose. Private audio clip, lose clip equals new audio clip, and I'm going to need to make a lose URL. I'll do that on the line above. Excuse me. Now, clearly what I've done here with the URL line, as I mentioned in the classroom, and many of you are seeing this having not been to the classroom, one of the benefits of taking a class as opposed to just looking on your own to do this stuff is some of these more non-obvious things. It would be very difficult for you to have come to the conclusion to use the this.getClass.get resource and the name of the file. It would have been very challenging for you to have come up with that completely on your own. It would have taken you quite some time, some playing around, poring over API documentation, maybe Googling some stuff. But here I can show you that this is a good way for pulling in resources that are required to be in a URL format and turning them into our URL that we can use either natively if it asks for a URL or convert it to a string if it asks for a string. Now, down here, when we win or lose, we can do win clip dot play, just like we sort of do with our animations. This is with an audio clip. Lose clip, play. So we'll play the appropriate sound that goes with winning or losing. Because we're just doing, it's just a short clip, we don't have to go through the trouble of stopping it. So we'll save it. Compile. And run. It's pulling in the additional. Oh, I somewhere made a mistake. Perhaps let's make sure I named those correctly. I have a clap and a loser are the names of the files. Oh, and I called it lose. So it had an unknown resource, or just like we had before. Before I turned it into a URL in the toString, I showed that I was good here. Remember, just a couple minutes ago, I showed that these two lines worked properly because it did run. So I knew the issue had to be with these two, and I knew I had created the URL, so I knew it wasn't the same problem. But it's still essentially saying it can't find the resource I'm trying to use for the audio clip. So the first thing I thought of was that it would be the name. And I misremembered the name of the file, left off the R, and that should now put us back to normal. Loading the resources, and here's the game. So let me catch it and place a nice little applause. I hit return. Has a sort of Price is Right, you lose horn thing. And it just adds kind of a nice little fun element to the game. Now you'll see if I hit reset quickly enough, they can overlap a little. So if for your own edification you'd like to cut that off, you can do you could do a stop in the reset, um, uh, but you would have to attempt to stop both sounds. For me, I don't feel that being necessary, so I'm actually going to leave that out. But again, that like so many things in this class, it does give you some opportunity to explore other aspects of these classes within your own program to play around with it and see what else you can do. By adding those nice, pretty uh, GIFs in there now. My black and white um, ball and box may look a little too plain now. Again, things you can play around with. You could change the stroke colors on your lines and circle. You can change the fill color on the ball. Uh, and just kind of play with those. You can change the color of the text, or the font on the text, the size of the text. Look at the API libraries, and you can play around with them and make the simple catch game a little more fun, or have a little more pop. So feel free to play with those and utilize those, and look for an additional video, um, hopefully in about 24 hours, and we'll go from there. Take care and enjoy playing with the Java.